All right, so let's move to this parable. This is the dishonest manager. This is quite the rat's nest of paradoxes, this one. Luke 16, 1 to 15. Jesus also told this story to his disciples. There was a rich man who had a manager to handle his affairs, and a report was brought to him that the man was wasting his money. So he called in the manager and said to him, "What is this that I hear about you? Prepare a final accounting of your work, for you can no longer be my manager." And the manager said to himself, "What shall I do now, since my master is taking the job away from me? I have not the strength to dig, and I'm ashamed to beg. But I do know what I can do to make sure that people will still receive me into their houses after I am put out of my position." So calling in his master's debtors one by one, he asked the first, "How much do you owe my master?" The debtor said, 100 measures of olive oil. And the manager said, "Take your account, sit down quickly, and write 50 instead." Then he asked another, "And how much do you owe?" And the man said, 100 measures of wheat. And the manager said, "Take your account and make it 80. In this, the master had to acknowledge the practical shrewdness of the dishonest manager. For the children of this world are wiser than the children of light in dealing with their own kind. And I tell you, there's a lesson here for you as well. If you possess the wealth of this world, even though that wealth is unrighteous in itself, you should use it to make friends and to do good, so that when your life is over, you will be received into the eternal dwelling places. Well, let's start with that. I'll finish the rest of it in a minute. So that's, this is a, I'm going to let you start with that.
You want me to start on that?
I'm going to let you start with that. Yeah, because it's...
I recently saw this video released on YouTube of Jordan Peterson and about 8 other people commenting on the parable of the dishonest manager in Luke chapter 16. And it seems to me that although there was a lot of different discussion going this way and that way, that the principal meaning of the parable wasn't dealt with. This parable is basically about treasure in heaven. Let's look at it again. It says that this dishonest manager knew that he was going to lose his job, and he thinks he's too weak to dig and he's too ashamed to beg, so he wants to make friends for himself after he loses his job. So he goes to his people that owe his master different amounts and he lowers them. So he's making friends for himself, so that when his job is gone, he will be welcomed into their houses and they maybe find him another job. And Jesus says that the people of this world are more shrewd with their kind than the people of the light. And he's saying, look at this guy. He knows without a doubt that he's going to lose this job. So he uses the opportunities he has now to make friends for himself when he's going to lose it. We know that we are all going to die. That's the absolute certainty. Nothing more certain than death and taxes, Mark Twain said. So we're all going to die. And Jesus is saying, why don't you use the things you have now to bless people, which will welcome you in heaven, and you will get reward and treasure in heaven. And the key verse is verse number 9, which says, Jesus says, I tell you, use worldly wealth to gain friends for yourselves, so that when it's gone, you will be welcomed into eternal dwellings. So what he's saying is, you know you're going to lose everything here. Use those opportunities to bless and love and do kindness and goodness, and there will be a reward in heaven. Jesus said, whoever gives a cup of cold water to someone will by no means lose their reward. And also God is watching. So the next verse says, whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with very much. And whoever is dishonest with very little will also be dishonest with much. So if you have not been trustworthy in handling worldly wealth, who will trust you with true riches? And if you've not been trustworthy with someone else's property, who will give you property of your own? And God is saying, look, this world is like a test. If you can't be trusted to deal with worldly wealth, which is not really yours, it's temporary. It's going to be dust and ashes one day. It's all going to pass away. If you can't be trusted to deal with those things, which are temporary and you're only a steward of, who's going to give you real riches in the next life to look after? Because you won't be trustworthy with those. That's the implication. But that's what he's talking about. He's saying, if I can't trust you to do what's right with the things of this world, which are ultimately dust and ashes. How can I give you eternal riches and property of your own to deal with in the next life? So the meaning of this parable is very clear and very relevant. It's talking about being faithful in this life so that we reap treasure in heaven. Use worldly wealth, which is you're gonna lose it, to make friends for yourself in the next life. That's the point of the parable.